We've owned our vineyards in Buttrio and the winery in Buttrio since the 15th of February 1585, which roughly means 500 years. And we acquired it through a marriage, which is also the reason why I know the exact date. I don't just know a year. This guy, Pompeo di Maniago, marries this lady called Lavinia Freschi di Cuccagna, and she brings the vineyards, the winery, all of the buildings into my family's hand. And since then, there has been no time throughout history where these vineyards haven't been cared for and managed by a Attimis-Maniago or a member of the Attimis-Maniago family. I am currently the 18th generation who's been working here.
Welcome to this special Clubhouse session of the Italian Wine Podcast. Listen in as members of the Italian wine community engage in fascinating conversations about contemporary wine topics. If you enjoyed the show, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. And remember to subscribe and rate the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your pods.
Hello and welcome to Clubhouse, the Ambassador's Corner. My name is Carla Ravagnolo and today I'm pleased to welcome Anna Obuhovskaya and her guest Fabio Attimis-Maniago from the Attimis-Maniago estate. Welcome everybody.
Ciao. Ciao a tutti.
So Anna, since you're going to be today's host, why don't we start by asking you to tell us a little bit more about yourself, your background, your wine experience.
Ciao, well, with pleasure. I'm a proud Italian wine ambassador and my discovery in wine started 16 years ago. My expertise is mostly in wine retail marketing and sales. I worked in a number of bigger wine importing companies and independent projects and founded Italian Wine Tasting Club in Saint Petersburg in Russia. But in 2020, I started my journey as an Italian wine ambassador. Since 2022, I'm based in Slovenia. And currently, I'm leading export development and sales strategies for wineries at Nautilus Trade. This is the company that I founded.
Nice. So, moving on to today's guest. How did you discover about Attimis-Maniago wines?
Well, I had the pleasure to be invited to Pignolo Festival in Udine. It was on March 20th this year, and it's a fantastic event within the Association of Pignolo Producers. And Fabio is the president of this association and a great Pignolo producer. So I had a chance to meet Fabio and also discover his wines in the entire range of Pignolo wines from other producers. This is how we met, through wine, through a great event in Udine.
Amazing. So why did you decide to invite Fabio specifically with us today?
Well, first of all, I loved the wines and I love the style. It's very elegant. It's something that you could see made with a good tradition and with a good hands, with a big knowledge in the background. And second, I do believe in the power of young generation in winemaking. And Fabio is definitely a very interesting guest. And I'm looking forward to ask him some questions today about the wine, about the future of the region, about Pignolo grape, of course.
So may I ask you, what are the learning objectives that we should expect from this interview?
Yes, well, today I hope we learn more about the Pignolo grape variety, which is, in my eyes, a cherry on the top of the range of wines in Friuli, and also about the perspective of Friuli wines on the international scene.
Amazing. So I'll now mute myself. The show is yours, Anna.
Thank you, Carla. Ciao, Fabio. Nice to see you.
Anna. Great to be here.
Could you quickly describe for our audience your background in wine and how you connected to the winery? What's your experience?
Yes, for sure. So ours is a historical winery. We've owned our vineyards in Buttrio and the winery in Buttrio since the 15th of February 1585, which roughly means 500 years. And we acquired it through a marriage, which is also the reason why I know the exact date. I don't just know a year. I know day, month, and year. This guy, Pompeo di Maniago, marries this lady called Lavinia Freschi di Cuccagna, and she brings the vineyards, the winery, all of the buildings into my family's hand. And since then, there has been no time throughout history where these vineyards haven't been cared for and managed by a Attimis-Maniago or a member of the Attimis-Maniago family. I am currently the 18th generation who's been working here. So it's quite, let's say, the responsibility in a way, but it's a fun responsibility, one that I enjoy being part of, and it's a tradition that I enjoy being a part of, you know.
Well, this is what we call deep roots of the vine, going down and connecting you with different generations of your family, your ancestors. That's pretty amazing. Can you also tell us about your current influence in the winery? What's your job? What is your duty?
Yes, so this is a family estate, so everyone does a bit of everything, you know, from bottling to sales to, I don't know, buying and marketing. It doesn't really matter. My days are pretty odd and unforeseeable in many ways. That being said, my main focus is on export and international sales, because I think that's an area that, let's say that where our winery and Friuli in general has quite a big, let's say, a margin to improve and be more present. So that's why I decided to care more for that side of the business rather than other parts that are already being taken care of by very expert and knowledgeable people.
But did you always want to be a part of the family business, or you had some other idea, let's say, for your career? I know that you're a well-educated young man, that you studied abroad and you decided actually to come back to the family business. Can you tell us a bit more about it?
Yes, so that's an interesting question, and a question that I get asked quite often, which makes sense considering the history of our family in wine, which is, you know, it's difficult to have 18 generations, each one of them passionate and that cares about wine. So every now and then people do ask me, quite often actually, people do ask me, how did I decide to be part of this business? Many people also ask me if I was compelled to be part of the family business. And nothing could be further from the truth, honestly. I live pretty much within the winery, wonderful commute in the morning. So when you live a family business, when you grow into, let's say, especially this business that is based on passion, it's very difficult not to be attracted by it. So there was no time that I can remember, aside from when I was very small. You know, in Italy, kids have two dreams. When they're in elementary school, when they're 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, they either want to be astronauts or football players. I wanted to be an astronaut. Then growing up, I changed my dreams, let's say, and I always thought about making wine. I always thought about being part of the business. Now, I didn't know which role would I have taken. I didn't know what my, let's say, calling was. I didn't know what I wanted to do specifically. That came later on. That came through experience. I started working here after, again, number of experiences. I lived in England for a couple of years. Then I got my degree in economics and management in Trento. And then I worked a bit in other wineries around Italy. And then I came here. And it's by working that I discovered that, let's say, I want to be involved in sales and in international markets and in developing international markets. But I've always wanted to be part of the winery and of this business.
Well, that's a really interesting explanation. And what was your degree in the university, if I may ask?
Of course, I have a degree in economics and management, so I don't have necessarily a technical background when it comes to winemaking and vine growing. All the things I know about making wine, caring for vines, and so on are things that I learned through experience, through many harvests since I was very little, and through working in the winery with my own hands. But I think economics is it's a good degree to have. It's a good technical background to have. Nowadays, world is challenging and you need to be precise with your decisions. I'm happy to have a degree in economics because I think it helps me in many ways to make good decisions and decisions that can bring the winery not just to the 19th generation, but also to the 20th and the 21st generation and so on and so forth.
That's a great perspective, I must say. Yeah, it is a valuable discipline, let's say, quite important. And this is what I see in many other families who are winemakers. They start as farmers, they start as growers, working in their own estate. And when it is possible to give other generations education, also very good education, maybe in best universities, maybe with best possible professors and all. And it's definitely either business or marketing or economics. something that would help distribution, because no matter how good you make the wine, distribution is always the key. Working in the wine sales in retail so many years, this is my outlook to the industry. I think that distribution is really critical in the wine business, to be present at certain markets.
I'm sure you can attest to that much better than I could ever dream of doing. But yes, I agree, especially in agriculture and therefore also in wine, time is slow. We're not in plant, we're not in the industrial sector. So when we try to make a new product, a new wine specifically, since we're talking about wine, it takes years and years and years and years. It's a very lengthy process to develop a new product, to, let's say, perfect a technique or something like that. So for me, it always made sense that the first generations always, let's say, focused on production. And it's just the following generations that, trying to develop better marketing, better distribution, better sales to, find new markets and so on and so forth, new buyers. It's always seemed natural to me.
And what is your approach within winemaking? Is it more traditional, modern, or mix of both?
This is a difficult question. If I had to choose between traditional and modern, I would surely pick traditional. Being born and, carrying a very deep heritage and deep roots, as you said before, in this business, in winemaking and in the wine industry, I have to pick traditional. Not just because, for the sake of the past, not just because of that, but it's because I truly believe in all of the learning, all of the experiences that we've made throughout the centuries. It's not, again, learning new things in wine, in agriculture is always very, very difficult, very, very challenging. And therefore, it takes time. So for me, it's always about tradition. Then again, since you allow me to pick and also choose a mix of both, I must land on a mix of both, because at the end of the day, new techniques are developed every year. There are new, let's say, styles, new things that we are experimenting every day in this winery and in many other wineries throughout Friuli. We're not unique in that sense. And so we're always trying to improve on our products. I would say that the best lesson that I got from my ancestor is believing in Friuli. It's terroir. It's what the French call terroir. It's believing in native varieties. It's believing in what the typical products of Friuli are. You mentioned Pignolo before. It's one of the many native varieties that we have in Friuli. And that's probably what, let's say, if I had to pick between traditional and modern, what would carry me more toward the traditional side rather than the modern style, in the sense of finding new styles, new techniques, and so on.
Well, yes, it was once very modern to bring in international varieties to Friuli. Now there is a tendency to work with local varieties, with indigenous varieties, although Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay and Pinot Noir and Merlot, those are typical varieties of Friuli. So in your estate, how you balance native varieties with international ones? What drives your choices, more or less?
Yes. So international varieties, as you said, even though they are not natives, I'm thinking about maybe Pinot Grigio, Sauvignon. In this specific area, my winery and all of my vineyards are located in Buttrio, which is in the south of the DOC, Friuli Colli Orientali. We have a great sun exposition. We have a couple of degrees more in terms of temperature on average. So Merlot is another international varieties that I think found a perfect spot on those hills in Buttrio. Those are varieties that are not maybe native, but they're surely traditional, as you said. I think Pinot Grigio, we've had it in our vineyards for more than 2 centuries. So it's nothing new, let's say. So they do carry a weight in the wines that I produce and in my production. I'm leaning, not just me, but my family in general, my dad as well, always lean towards growing the amount of hectares that we have of native varieties. So slowly but surely we are getting rid of international varieties to be more focused both in the vineyards, in the winery, but also when we present the wine and we tell the stories of our wines to our customers on the native varieties. For example, up until 2 years ago, we used to make Chardonnay. Chardonnay is now wine that we don't make anymore. We didn't replace it with something new. We just got rid of the Chardonnay in bottle to give us more space to focus on native varieties for one very simple reason. If we want to tell the story of Friuli, if we want to have people know what Friuli is all about, we have to focus, in my opinion, we have to focus on native varieties because they are the best ones to tell the story of Friuli. Pinot Grigio, yes, as we said, it's a traditional variety of Friuli. Sauvignons in Friuli is well known around the world, but they're not native. They weren't born here. So Refosco, Pignolo, Tazzolenghe, Malvasia, those are the varieties that we have to, in my opinion, care more for and focus on.
Well, you do definitely focus a lot on Pignolo, and you became an elected president of the Pignolo Association. I had the chance to taste a variety of Pignolo wines recently, but to the people who never tasted it, could you describe, how would you describe Pignolo taste?
This is the most difficult question you've asked to date. I don't think I can, honestly. Pignolo is an experience. Pignolo is something that you have to taste to really understand what Pignolo is all about, especially coming to the tasting with, the preconception of what Friuli is all about, the great land of white wines. You wouldn't know how to approach Pignolo, and I don't want to spoil the surprise for you. You mentioned that we met during the World Pignolo Day, which is the day when we celebrate the beauty of Pignolo, the story of Pignolo, and everything that comes and goes around the Pignolo vine and the Pignolo wines. And every year we choose a different topic, a different theme for the day. This year's theme was the unexpected. So since we are still in 2025 and the World Pignolo Day was World Pignolo Day year 2025, I want to keep in line with the theme, and I will say that I will not describe what Pignolo is all about because it must be unexpected. If you want to learn more about Pignolo, my recommendation is go to your local distributor, go to your local wine shop, go to your local retailer, or wherever you acquire your wines, and ask them to find you a box of Pignolo. Grab a train, a bus, a car, a flight, whatever, come to Friuli, travel through the wineries that make Pignolo, and talk with the Pignolo producers, talk with the Pignolo lovers, taste Pignolo with them. I think that's the best way to learn about what Pignolo is all about.
Well, that's a really nice description. Of course, I'm not going to spoil the experience or steal the experience from the people. I just want to warm up, let's say, do some warm up. Well, due to my professional life, due to my job, I do taste a lot of wines in Italy and from other countries also, but I was really surprised with the average quality of Pignolo wines. And this was really unexpected to me. And this is something you don't quite expect from the land of white wines, which Friuli is definitely due to the reputation of last years and all. But Pignolo is definitely a surprising variety. It's deep, it's quite powerful, but powerful in a very Italian way. It's especially interesting to discover the variety of Pignolos because as far as I now learned from being on this festival, on this Pignolo Day, I discovered that you guys, the wine producers, you did not agree between yourself about the style of Pignolo wine. Every family, every estate has its own approach with this grape, which is very challenging, which is very hard to grow. And Pignolo, if you read the special literature, the books, it is often described as a challenging grape. So what makes it worth the effort for you, for your family?
That's a really good question. I think it leads back to the reason why all of the Pignolos you've tasted were of very, very high quality. Pignolo is everything but a necessity. Let's be honest here. We don't need Pignolo in our winery. I can very easily pay all of the wages of the people working here, pay all of the bills without making Pignolo. And I think this is part of the beauty of Pignolo. You don't need Pignolo, you want Pignolo. As for many other native varieties and of many other things in life, this is the beauty of it. What I really like about Pignolo, as we said before, is that it's unexpected. So I like a good challenge in life, as I do in business, and Pignolo is a great challenge for me in the winery, in the vineyards, because it's a game of patience. It's a game where you have to be very, very accurate, very, very precise when it comes to caring for the vines, finding the perfect time to pick it, and so on, finding the perfect barrique that complements the Pignolo. So it's a good challenge there, but it's also, I think, a challenge for the person who then has to taste the wine, because it's unexpected, but it also tells the complexity of Friuli, which I think is one of the strong suits of Friuli. As we said, when you look for a high quality Pinot Grigio, you surely think about Friuli Venezia Giulia and the hills, especially of Friuli. When you want to drink a good Sauvignon, surely Friuli is one of the regions of the world that you are considering. But what are the regions where you look for a big, important, rich red wine? Tuscany, Piedmont, why not? But not necessarily Friuli. And one of the reasons why I think Pignolo is worth the effort is surely because of that, because it shows that Friuli is not just about whites, that Friuli is a rich land. It's a complex land where we can make great white wines, we can make great red wines, both fresh and aged. Then we can also make great sparkling wines and sweet wines, obviously. So that's what I like about it.
Well, that sounds really interesting and does sound like a really wide palette of Friuli wines. From my discussions with your colleagues, with other winemakers from Friuli, I realized that a lot of people now thinking or questioning what is actually the face of Friuli nowadays, because it was famous for white wines, it was famous for iconic wine producers from your area. But now a lot of wineries are having the new generation like yourself, and it means new perspective, new horizons in the winemaking for the industry. So my question is, as a president of Pignolo Association, what are your goals for the promotion, particularly Pignolo variety, and how you see the future of your region?
Yes, the soil is quite literally shifting in real time below our feet. Everything is changing, and we have to understand why things are changing and how to adapt to those changing palates, changing type of clients. There is also a big generational change within the winemakers in Friuli Venezia Giulia, as there is in the consumers around the world. So everything is changing, and we have to be very fast and very precise in understanding what is changing and how to be always relevant within the wine industry. I didn't mention it, but also weather is changing quite a bit. So that's a big factor when making wine. I just forgot about it, honestly. The goal with the Pignolo Association is pretty much that, to adapt to something that is changing, to adapt to new markets, to adapt to new trends, to adapt without obviously forgetting about the heritage of a specific vine and a specific variety. The Pignolo Association, the way I see it, is an instrument to both promote the variety to people that don't know it, but also to have a place where we as winemakers can talk about these topics. What is good? What is bad? You've mentioned before that we, as producers of Pignolo, we didn't get together to decide which kind of style we wanted to adopt when making Pignolo. The Pignolo Association is also a place where we can discuss these kind of topics, where we can discuss, what's the best training system for the vines in the fields, what the best placement is. Is it still a good idea to plant vines in the highest part of the hills? Maybe Pignolo is best in the lower parts of the hills. What's the best type of soil? It's not just about promoting the variety, it's also about us learning about the variety that Pignolo is. Obviously, promotion is a big part. The goal for these past few years is to have as many people as possible know about Pignolo within the region of Friuli Venezia Giulia. Anna, you've met many people from Friuli. You know that we very much like our region. If you go in Udine or a village like Buttrio and you ask to a random person, where are you from? They will not say, I'm from Italy. They will say, I'm from Friuli. When they go abroad, they carry Friuli with them. The number of Friulian importers and distributors around the world that carry only Friulian wines is unbelievable. They always have this connection. We as Friulian always have these connections. So I think the best ambassador of Friuli, of this very traditional native variety, will have to be the Friulian people. But in spite of that, not everyone knows about Pignolo, even within the boundaries of our region. So that's also why World Pignolo Day in the past few years has always been located in Udine. It's because we wanted the city and the people who live in Friuli to know about Pignolo so that they can share the news of Pignolo. And obviously, not just about, Friulian people. We had many other Pignolo lovers from Europe and abroad as well. I would say that we have these two souls within us. So it's about promotion and it's about always improving the quality of our production.
Well, I visited this Pignolo Day on March 20th this year, and I'm definitely going to be there next year. And I would like to share with our audience my recommendation. If you're ever thinking of going to Friuli around this time of the year, please do put this in your calendar to come to Udine to visit Pignolo Day. Again, due to my profession, due to my job, I visit a lot of wine events. This is pretty much all I get to see when I travel. I was very surprised and I was very happy with what I experienced in Udine because it was special. It was something I did not expect. As Fabio mentioned, it's unexpected. You definitely got me there. It was absolutely unexpected for me. The quality of wines, the quality of conversation, the quality of guests. Oh my God, it was such a great floor, such great speakers. The location itself, the food, the wines, fantastic. So it's not an advertising, but it's my strong recommendation to those of you who would like to experience something new and unexpected. Please plan your calendar and come visit Pignolo Day. So Fabio, I have another question for you regarding some experiments and researches that you do with Pignolo in your vineyard or cellar or maybe with an association. Can you share some data with us? Anything you lately discovered? Any results of experiments that you were witnessing?
The main focus for us as a winery for these past few years have been experimenting with different types of corks to find the best way to close the wine without leaving space for improvement. So without blocking the wine from evolving and aging in a beautiful way. Pignolo calls for aging. Pignolo strives for longer aging. So finding the right closure and the right type of closure wasn't easy. It surely wasn't easy also because it takes a lot of time because you have to see how the wine evolves with different types of corks. But this has been, let's say, the main focus for the time being for us as a winery. For the association, we will see. We have a couple of plans. We have a couple of ideas that we want to put on the ground and start working with on both research about the variety itself and also on finding the best techniques and the best, let's say, styles for this variety and the way in which, we can get to a specific style with some techniques according also to the placement of the vineyards and whatnot. Making wine is complex and there are many, many factors involved into making a great wine. But this is what the association will do in the coming months and also the coming years.
Well, thank you. That's really interesting. And regarding the new generation of wine producers in Friuli, looking ahead, what is the hope of next generation and what you're building upon it or what you do differently?
So I think the association is a good flag. It's a good example of what I hope the next generation, my generation in Friuli will do. Partnering up, collaboration, finding ways to work together. We are already and have been for many decades at this point, facing a world that is increasingly big. We are facing increasing competition from bigger regions, bigger players, bigger importers, bigger producers. It doesn't matter. Whilst Friuli, as we said before, it's a bit odd. We grow many different varieties, both native and international. We don't have a focus on a specific type of grape or a specific color of grape even. So it's very difficult to have big players in the hills of Friuli. So the only way to be always relevant in the worldwide stage of wine, I think it's to work together and never one against the other. That way we will not find any luck at all. What I hope is to have newer and younger people into winemaking in Friuli, owning wineries and managing wineries, that will be able to share the results of their research as people did in the past. That's how Friuli became a great land, is by sharing the knowledge, sharing techniques, sharing what they experiment within the winery. And in all honesty, I'm pretty positive in that regard. I know many younger guys working in, and girls also, working in winemaking in Friuli, and we had great conversation, very open conversations about what works and what doesn't, what they focus on and what they don't focus on, what they learned and what they made mistakes on as well, because you never learn without mistakes. Things that are not necessarily, that you cannot overlook. It's not always as straightforward, and sometimes it's not obvious. I don't take it for granted that people will share these kind of things with a colleague, with what is technically a competitor. At the end of the day, I'm technically a competitor of another producer in the region. I'm making the same wine from a similar region, from a similar area, or I'm making at least similar wines. So it's you could see it that way. You could see it as a competition. But what my generation, I think, is doing is not seeing each other as competition, but seeing each other as colleagues, which is a totally different thing.
Well, this sounds really promising, because sometimes the face of the region, the image of the entire region, becomes more important than the image of the particular producer, especially when there are a number of smaller producers, not some big name, not some big brand, not some big estate, but a number of smaller producers. Here I agree with you that it's important to work together on the image of the region. So you know what you communicate to the customers who don't know about Colli Orientali of Friuli. They barely know of Friuli in general. Sometimes, they don't know about Buttrio or Udine or Cormons. They barely know where this part of Italy is on the map. The world is so big, and sometimes we live in our spot and we think, okay, everybody knows this and that, but it's not the same. And uniting for forming a particular language, the style of wine, the particular way of communication about your wine is actually very, very important. Well, thank you so much for mentioning that, because I think it's a very perspective. Talking and communicating with other producers is something really valuable. I was surprised when I learned in this event that for many years people didn't even discuss with each other. They worked, neighbor with neighbor, but they didn't really even talk about the style of wine, so the difficulties, the challenges, and things like that. Yeah, surprising.
Yeah, no, it's true also. And I think it's the only way to move forward. Again, Friuli is so complex to explain. It's so difficult and unexpected. A big group, a big producer, it's impossible for them to convey this kind of complexity. They're not interested in that kind of complexity. And this is something that I learned also in university. What a big producer will do is find a key product, a key variety, easy to explain, easy to sell, where you can make high margin, and that's going to be it. But that would impoverish the land. That would destroy what Friuli is all about. Friuli is about complexity. And in a day and age where, dumbing down everything is the key word, you make it as simple as possible, because that way everyone will understand. It's all only a small producer, always only a bunch of crazy people can hope to change things and to really explain Friuli.
Well, thank you so much, Fabio, for this insight. Here, I'm completely on your side in this dialogue, and I'm really looking forward for the changes for the bright future of Friuli. I love Colli Orientali wines. From the days I learned about this region, about grape varieties, about Schepitino, Tazzilenghe, and Malvasile, Istriana, till now, the more I learn, the more I'm respecting your labor and your input in your land and the science and collaboration. I would like to ask, well, let's switch to something different, not to wine production, but to some touristic attractions of Friuli. When you get to recommend the area to the foreigners, what are the main things they need to know or visit once they are in Friuli?
Very difficult question. So Friuli has the mountains, Friuli has hills, Friuli has lakes, Friuli has rivers, Friuli has flatlands, but Friuli has also the sea. Friuli has a bit of everything. Like even here, we go back to the complexity point. So there is something for everyone, I think. I would recommend in terms of places, what I usually recommend are two places, actually. One is surely Udine, because I think Udine is a lovely city. Beautiful buildings, very livable place. So I really like it, and I always recommend people to go to Udine, to walk into a bar, not be afraid to talk to people in front of a glass of wine or, I don't know, a plate of charcuterie, salame, formaggio, cheese, and so on. The other place I usually recommend is Cividale. Cividale is this little medieval village that is let's say northern from Udine. It's 15 minutes drive from Udine, so it's not far away. And again, carries a lot of histories already since the Roman times. But there are multiple things that I could mention. I could talk about Aquileia, for example, where you find the Basilica di Aquileia, the Church of Aquileia, that has one of the most important mosaics in the world. We could talk about Trieste if we wanted to go closer to the border. Trieste is another beautiful city with the castle of Miramare, which is an incredible building.
My favorite place. I love it so much in Trieste.
I was on the fence whether to mention it or not, but it seems like I did the right choice. I made the right choice. One experience.
Still, I live not so far away. For me, it's 1 hour drive. And also, I think in my neighborhood, a lot of people know about it, but there are people listening to us from different parts of the world. So it need to be mentioned for sure.
No, that's 100% true. It's really nice. It's really nice. Literally on the sea, it's something else, honestly. And I have to say it in spite of that between Friuli and Trieste, and between Udine and Trieste, there is a bit of rivalry, let's say. I had to mention Miramare in spite of this rivalry, in spite of the fact that I am clearly on Udine's side, but it's really something else. It's really something else. The last thing that I wanted to mention more than a place is an experience. And I think it's something that people should really do if they happen to be in Friuli in the right time of the year. I don't even know how to say it in English. I don't know how to translate this word in English. Maybe you can help me, Anna. It's a sagra. So basically, throughout the summers, every village in Friuli, every town and city in Friuli has their own little festival, in a way. Everyone is focused on a local product, whether it's, radicchio or wine or, cheese. Each village has its own, let's say, spin on the thing. And they basically have stands where you can eat, you can sit down, there is music, there are people there. It's a big party of the village, let's say. And I think it's a great way to truly learn about Friuli and especially the people of Friuli. One of the things that I love about my job is that I get to travel around the world, and not just travel, because I don't just go sightseeing, I live and spend my days with people that are local. Whether they're American, Canadian, German, from the Netherlands, England, it doesn't matter. You breathe and live their culture. And I think one of the best ways to live the culture of Friuli is go to one of these sagre. You can look it up online. They basically happen throughout the whole summer, from probably June up until late September, maybe even early October. That is something that I always recommend. Not necessarily fancy things. You won't find high-end Michelin-starred cuisine, but you find truly local products.
Well, that's fantastic. I didn't know about this sagras, really. I should be checking online, and are they mostly happening on the weekend?
Yes, mostly, but not all only. They usually happen for a couple of days. Usually it's always a Saturday and a Sunday because everyone's always a bit more free, let's say. They're not touristy attraction. Most of the times it's a local thing. So it's a place where I would go, not necessarily like the American tourist that comes from abroad. I think it's worth checking out. There are multiple ones again. You basically pick and choose. My recommendation is to pick and choose. There are websites online that list all of the different festivals that are in Friuli throughout the summer. And you pick and choose. My recommendation is according to what you want to eat and what you want to try, let's say.
And what is the best way to search for this kind of events? Just type in Sagra Friuli.
I think, so I'm in front of my computer, and I think there is a website that is called Sagre Online Friuli, where you find a list of all of the different sagre that you can find. So
Perfect. Fantastic. Thank you very much for this recommendation. So I think the time of our interview is running out. So I have a couple of more questions for you. And I also welcome our audience to ask questions if they have some. So my questions to you, Fabio, would be, you already speak about the events, but which food you particularly recommend to try once somebody travels to Friuli? Of course, I expect you to say maybe your favorite foods from the area.
This is, I've said it several times, you've asked fairly difficult questions sometimes, but this is a very easy one if you ask me.
Okay.
Really, really easy. I would go with frico, obviously. Frico is this kind of, let's say, it's a mix of potato and cheese, basically, Montasio cheese, made within a pan, and it comes out as kind of a small cake. Let's say it's obviously not sweet, but it's delicious, very easy. Friuli has never been a rich land, so, potatoes and cheese were things that everyone had and everyone could afford. And they made this beautiful dish that is called frico, very local, but very, very good. I had people from all around Italy and all around the globe, really, tasting it. And I've never encountered someone that said, I don't like it. So easy recommendation. You cannot go wrong with frico.
Yeah, well, potato and cheese seems to be the world's famous food.
Yes, exactly.
Some brands even build a menu out of these two products.
Exactly.
So it's definitely very appealing, and it's not something of high cuisine, something of a Michelin star restaurant. It's very easy. It's very approachable. Is there a way that people season the frico? How you eat this potato and cheese thing usually? You season it with something, or you add some toppings, or which wine pairs best to your choice?
No, usually it's like the traditional version of frico is just potato and cheese. You can add other things on it. Oftentimes people add onions, for example, sometimes pancetta. It really depends on what you want to do. There is a place in Friuli that does 40 different types of frico with tomatoes, various types of meats. So you can add toppings. The traditional one is just potato and cheese because, it's the same, like with food, it's the same with wine, basically. Adding things doesn't make something better. Making something, let's say, look more difficult doesn't mean that you make it better. Sometimes it's more difficult to improve on something that seems easy than it is to make a very complex, very beautiful looking plate, very beautiful looking dish. And it's easier to do it that way rather than take a couple of ingredients and make a great dish, great tasting dish.
Fantastic. Which wine would you pair with frico? What is your favorite choice? Let's say. You like sparkling, you like white wine, you like red wine, any particular grape variety maybe?
I forgot the most important question, or the most important part of the question. So another question that I get asked oftentimes is, what's my favorite wine? And I never know how to answer to that. So same way, I will not really answer to your question with one answer. Let's say I'm lucky enough to be able to drink different types of wines pretty much every day because it's part of my job and it's my passion. So I would recommend probably a Refosco. Refosco dal Peduncolo Rosso is a native variety from Friuli. It's a red grape variety from Friuli, very common. You can find it in many, many wineries. It's surely one of the most common native varieties that there is. And I think it can go very well with Frico. Another wine that I would recommend, if you're not maybe a red wine drinker and prefer your whites, could be Malvasia Istriana. Malvasia is also a pretty powerful wine that can go very well with Frico. Those are, let's say, my two recommendations. But then, as you know, when it comes to pairings, to each their own. Also because there are, like, even within these varieties, there are multiple types and multiple types of styles of winemaking. So there is no fixed rules, which is what I think is enjoyable when it comes to wine and food pairing.
Well, absolutely. But at least to give some of your choice, it's always interesting. Okay.
That's, let's say, what I would drink.
Okay. Perfect. I know that some people would prefer sparkling wine also, and in Friuli there are some sparkling wines also made. Thank you so much, Fabio, for your time and for this conversation. I enjoyed it a lot. And Carla, I think I'm ready to give floor to you.
Thank you, Anna, by the way. Thank you, Carla, for having me here. And it was a really great talk, honestly.
It's been fun. It's been extremely fun. And now I really want to eat that frico with some schioppettino.
Thank you so much, Fabio. It was a very interesting conversation. I enjoyed it a lot. And I hope our audience would also love to listen into this interview and would plan their trip to Friuli sometime soon. And also Pignolo Day on March 20th.
Grazie, Anna. Thank you for the time and see you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Ciao, arrivederci.
Ciao.
Listen to the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Himalaya FM, and more. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the show. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. Until next time, cin cin.